What's up, geeks? So I'm here to give you a movie review on Pacific Rim Uprising. Now I'm gonna be real with you, whenever the trailers came out, I was totally gonna go see this movie. And I don't ever watch movie reviews before seeing a movie that I really wanna watch. But it was late one night and I watched Black Nerd Comedy's 9-minute review of this movie, and it kind of changed my opinion to, yeah, I'm gonna go see this movie too. Maybe? But the other day, me and my friend, we were out and we had time and they were like, you wanna see a movie? And I was like, sure. Pacific Rim Uprising? And so we went and saw it, and I got some notes here and I'm gonna give a review of it. Warning, there are probably gonna be spoilers in this just because I'm gonna talk about the movie. So if you are planning on seeing the movie, click away, because I'm gonna be spoiling it. Without any further ado, let's get in it. So first off, there is a different director for this movie, which you can tell. The director for the first one was Del Toro. I can never pronounce his first name. But with this one, the new director is Steven Knight, and you can really tell that there are different directors in this movie because this movie is a bit more colorful, whereas the previous movie was a bit more Del Toro's style, which is that like dark undertone, like keeping it kind of dark style. So I just wanted to point that out. There is a backstory. They explain the previous movie and the beginning of the movie, and they do give a backstory in the beginning of the movie. That way you don't have to watch the first one, but I would still recommend watching the first one before going to see this new one, just because there were some points in the movie where I was just like, this was in the first movie and they didn't explain it in this movie at all. So I was sitting in the theater, I was like, are some people going to understand this? Because if you didn't see the first movie, you're not gonna really understand it all too well. Because, I mean, there are points where they do talk about things that happened in the previous movie, but in my opinion, it's just better off watching the first one and then going to see this one. That way you completely understand it. So John Boyega, nope, Jake Pentecost is the lead character in this movie, and he's basically a party goer, and he's a trader. He trades things with people. That's how he makes a living. And then he ends up coming across a young girl who is by the name of Amara Namani, and she built her own Jaeger out of scraps. And he ends up getting in the mix with her. And in this story, you're not allowed to make your own Jaegers unless you have a license. And obviously this young girl didn't, so they both get caught and stuck together, and the only way they can get out of it is if they join the Ranger Jaeger program. Rangers are what they call the people who pilot the Jaegers, the big giant robots. And I thought that was cool because she's Namani, she's not like the typical female leads that you see in sci-fi movies, which she's just nothing there for pure like fantasy value. She actually has good story and character development in this movie, which I really, really liked. So I love that character. I think she did well. But anyways, they train for most of this movie, and then this Chinese woman comes in by the name of Li Wen Chao, and she has this company that is building drones to kind of replace the Jaeger program. These drones can be piloted by one person from anywhere in the world. That way they don't obviously have to sacrifice people when controlling the drones, like what happens with Jaegers. You know, people can obviously die. So she's trying to get approval from the board. There are returning characters in this, which is really nice to see. I was very happy to see them return. But anyways, Li Wen Chao, she is going to the board and present her drones. And a Jaeger appears. a rogue Jaeger appears, and Jake and the other lead male character, Nate, which let me talk about him first. He's the stereotypical, like, brooding, like, military man. Like, these are the rules and you have to follow them. And it kind of got boring at some points with his character. Like, he talked about having, like, what happened with Jake and why he left. And I thought the backstory of why Jake left was going to be more serious than, like, Nate put out to be. Like, it sounded like he had this personal grudge to Jake, and it turned out to be very, like, nothing. And it was like, really? This is why you have, like, a grudge against him? This is not important. But anyways, back to the story. Jake and Nate are piloting their Jaeger, and they're fighting against this rogue Jaeger that appeared. And then a cliche death happens. It's like, really? Why? You brought her back. Why did she have to die? Like, it was so cliche. You saw it coming, and I really dislike that. Like, it was more than anything cringeworthy. There was even a slow motion shot. It was like, really? But anyways, before this character dies, she sends a message, which later on, after the rogue Jaeger has disappeared, they decipher it, and it turns out it looks like a kaiju head, which a kaiju is a monster, one of the big monsters in the movie, or any of the monsters. Anyways, it's a monster. But turns out the kaiju head is actually an island, which I thought was really. But anyways, they go to this island, and then the rogue Jaeger appears, and they take it down, and it turns out that there are kaiju parts in it, and people are like, what is this? What? And later on, some of the kids, including Namani, which there are a whole group of teenage kids in this movie that are training to become rangers who end up piloting the Jaegers. And most of the kids, they're not talked about in this movie. So, like, later on in the movie, one of the kids does die, and you don't really have a feel for them because they don't talk about, like, why these kids are here, like, what's their like, there's nothing about these kids except they're there to become rangers. And I would have loved to learn more about them so I could have more of a feel to them, but they don't have any character development whatsoever. There's also this Russian girl who just has, like, a grudge against Namani this whole entire movie until, like, the end, and it's like, why? This is stupid. Why? But anyways, a group of the kids go, and they go and look inside the rogue Jaeger because they brought the rogue Jaeger back to the base of where everybody is at, where most of this movie takes place. And they find out that there are Shao parts in it, which comes from Li Wen Shao's company. And they were like, yeah, she's the bad guy in this and everything. And then later on in the movie, Dr. Newton, who is a returning character in this movie, he ends up becoming the bad guy. And you kind of see it coming and you kind of don't at the same time. So what happens is the Shao company basically wants to put out their drones as fast as possible. And they do, but Dr. Newton has infected them with kaiju. And the drones end up turning into kaiju monsters. It's like a hybrid. And it was a really cool concept that was quickly ended. And Newton was like, I'm gonna end the world. And it's like, this is a cliche villain moment. And it was really poorly done too, just in my opinion. He just straight up was like, I'm gonna end the world. And it's like, okay. And you end up learning that his mind is infected with the aliens who created the kaiju, and that is something that happened in the last movie, which it's really shortly talked upon in the movie, so Again, it's one of those moments where you gotta watch the previous movie in order to understand it completely in this movie. So from there, the drones actually end up recreating a hole that brought the kaiju into the world. But once the drones are disabled, then the hole disappears. But there are still 3 kaiju that have appeared, and so all these kids come together, including Jake and Nate. They come together and they prepare whatever Jaegers they can, and they go and they fight these monsters. Or the kaiju, I should say. And they fight 3 individual kaiju, but then this is really where I took Black Nerd Comedy's review into mind. Just Dr. Newton is off in the distance looking at his monsters like, yeah, take those Jaegers, those hunk of metal down. And then he saw that the kaiju were being defeated, and he's like, time to make my monsters grow. And I'm like, this is Power Rangers. This is so Power Rangers. Because he brings out these little, I don't even know what they are, little robots. And the 3 kaiju come together, and the little robots connect to each 3 individual kaiju and create one big kaiju. It was literally make my monster grow. Power Rangers. It was just a Power Rangers moment. I was so waiting for all the Jaegers to just come together and make a Megazord. I was like, this is Power Rangers! This is... what? But anyways, basically, early in the movie, they find out that the kaiju are going to Mount Fuji to try to explode it, to create this toxin that, like, pretty much kills the whole world. And so the kaiju is going there, and then, of course, in the end, they defeat the monster. I won't explain how, they just defeat the monster. And it just cuts off. It was like, okay. And then I was like, is there gonna be like, not an after credit, but like another scene? And there was, and they had captured Newton, the villain, and he was totally like, I'm gonna end the world, like totally setting up for another movie. And I'm just sitting there like, I don't know if there's gonna be another movie. But that's pretty much the storyline. Some nitpicks that I had within this movie. The lead female, Amara, she did fantastic in this movie. I really enjoyed her character. And I wish her mech that she had built, Scrapper, was in it more, because I really liked his design. He like rolls around, which was really interesting. And just in general, I liked all of the Jaegers in this movie. I thought all the robots, the Jaeger robots, were very pleasing, especially that orange one. I just absolutely loved it. Another thing that I had a nitpick in this movie was there's a female character, and she has no point in there. You could do the sexy lamp technique with her, which basically is you take a lead female character, you replace her with a sexy lamp, and she still has the same value. She could have just been removed from this movie completely, because she was nothing but sex appeal for the 2 male lead characters, Nate and Jake. I thought she would have been more interesting if she had gotten in a Jaeger herself and she was also a ranger, but she was nothing but there for sex appeal for the 2 lead characters, so I thought they could have just taken her out. John Boyega made this movie. At the end of the movie was like, I'm here for this boy's attitude and his character, because he was just phenomenal in it, and I enjoyed him so much. Another thing that was actually in the movie, there's a small shot where a mecha statue appears, or a Gundam statue, and it's actually a building in Japan. It's like the father of all like Gundam. It's like the building where most like Gundam and mecha figures are held, and in the front of the building is a Gundam statue, And I was like, hey, I know what that is, because Pacific Rim is basically based off Gundam and mecha anime, as well as like Godzilla movies and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really good little nitpick that they put in to be like, hey, this is the origin. Just a little snippet of it. But this is where, you know, Pacific Rim was kind of taken from, which was really nice. I really enjoyed that. So once the monster becomes a bigger monster, one of its abilities is if the Jaeger punched the monster, the kinetic energy from that punch is taken by the kaiju, and it can pretty much take that kinetic energy and use it against the Jaegers. And I'm sitting there like, did somebody go and see Black Panther and thought, quick, we have to put this in our movie, that's a great idea? Because I'm sitting in the theater, and as soon as that happened, I was like, Black Panther? So I thought they could have just came up with a different ability. So yeah, if I had to rate this movie between bad, good, and must see, I would have to rate it good, just like the first one. It's a nice movie to see. I would just recommend watching the first one first so you can clearly understand everything, and then go and see this movie. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this. If you like this video, click the thumbs up button, and if you want to see more geeky videos whenever I put them out, hit the subscribe button. But as always, stay geeky, my friends.